We have to make sure that the politicians are held accountable.
Every administration had the ability to put a ban on asbestos.
When it comes to asbestos, it really is about power, money, and politics.
Next speaker is Chris Walker, who is here from the University of Vermont.
Thank you. So I, of course, am the only one with not an ADAO slide. I apologize for that. Early on, I got a call, like a lot of people. I got this call from Linda saying, "Do you believe this shit?" And she goes into what's going on, and we'll get into it, but this is what brings me here. And we all know she likes to jump into action. So this is an asbestos mine. This is the mine in Eden and Lowell, Vermont. It runs between the two towns, and Dr. Lemon, I thought, was going to steal my thunder early on this morning because he started talking about this mine. I was like, what am I here for if he's going to talk about it? But clearly he didn't go into that. So this is just a shot. You can see we're in northern Vermont, where the mine is located, and you can see that. I'm sorry, I'm a wanderer when I talk. Sorry. Thetford Mines and Asbestos, Quebec are kind of along that same line. It's the same vein. And I've been to all of these mines, and we really have been talking about legacy issues, and maybe we need to call it a malignant legacy more than anything. I don't know if that's coin that phrase or not, but it seems to fit. You're right, a legacy is more of a good thing, and this is a horrible, horrible thing that's going on. The mine itself, the Vermont mine, if I can go back, it's in two towns, Eden and Lowell. So Eden has a population of, in 2010, there was a population of, 1,300 people. Lowell in 2000, when the last census came through, 738 people. So they are tiny towns. But these are towns that grew up with these mines. They are, the mines are embedded in these towns. And like I said, 1823, asbestos was found in Eden. 1899, the Lowell Lumber and Asbestos Company was formed to sort of start mining the other part of Belvedere Mountain. 1902, New England Asbestos and Mining Company came in, and then in the 30s, it was the Rubberoid Company. And by 1940, this mine was producing 90% of all the US asbestos. So that's huge, and you can imagine the amount of money that's coming into a small town like this. So this is generations of people that have worked in this mine. In 1973, Rubberoid and GAF, basically, I don't know if they could see the writing on the wall, but they didn't want to put the money in to the plant for the dust control systems to make it safer to work. And when I say safe, it's quote unquote safe. We all know it's not safe. So in 1975, the mine closed. In that same year, 75 or 76, the workers got together and raised $2 million and reopened the mine. They decided to control their own fate. So fast forward, and that created the Vermont Asbestos Group that still sort of owns the mine today. The mine was closed in 1993. And in doing this and sort of looking into this, it's very hard to find data on working conditions inside. There's word of mouth, people talk. I was able to find a widow of a worker who sued and won. She did not win a lot, and certainly not enough to cover any of the costs of what her husband had to go through, but he had told her a story that at least daily he was a bagger, at least daily a bag would break open. And these are 100-pound bags of raw asbestos. So he would have to blow himself off. And if you can only imagine, this is a plant with, most of the people in the town work in this plant. So it was proven he did die of an asbestos disease, I believe in 2004. Just another shot of the mine. The site covers a little over 1,500 acres, and the tailings piles altogether are estimated around 30 million tons. So like I said, 93, the mine closes. 2004, there's someone down, about a mile downstream, so to speak, of the mine complains that there is asbestos on his property, and it's ruining his property values. So this creates a huge fight. A&R comes in, does testing. They find elevated levels of nickel and magnesium in the waters. Downstream wetlands, where this guy's property was, and you'll see some pictures in a little bit, 85% chrysotile fibers. And in the mine, as we go through, you'll see it's still found raw around the site. One of the biggest issues is how they did it. This is not, you should, any mining site, these piles are massive. I mean, you can see them. They should be tapered off more than that. And so the problem is now the piles are shifting. 2007, 2008, EPA came in, I think with some help of the Department of Health, and you can see, a little difficult to see, but there's like at the bottom of that pile, you can see kind of a ridge that goes along the tree line. They've created these berms to stop these piles from sliding in. I mean, that's ridiculous. I mean, we get a lot of snow, we get a lot of melt, we get a lot of rain. Especially lately, it's still snowing there. I mean, these things are still covered. So as the melt comes down, these piles are slowly and sliding downhill, basically. It has now been closed off. You can't get in there. The general public can't walk around. You used to be able to go in. I went to college up in this area, and Linda's going to be mad at me on the next couple things, but this is before I knew. But you used to be able to go in there, and we would ski those piles covered in snow. But we would ski on those piles. You could go in, you could walk right in, nobody cared. There's one caretaker. Now I discourage that. I definitely make sure that nobody's doing it anymore. But you used to be able to go in and do it. It was great skiing. You can see this is runoff. This is downstream from the mine. That is, that water clearly should not be that color. It's milky white from the runoff. And that's, 86%, 85, 86% chrysotile. Like I said, elevated levels of nickel and magnesium. And the guy who owns the property, we were talking to him one day, and he has these great photos, of which I couldn't get any of, but he used to tell stories of he would see moose walking through with just a line of asbestos, around their belly from where they'd kind of walked through their through the area. Now this is the next photo that Linda again is not going to like, or anybody. That's me. Again, it was taken this photo was taken during the winter. You can see the snow. So the piles were frozen, but just the sheer size, and that's the small pile. That's the original pile at the Eden mine. That's called the Eden pile. This photo is, that's just lying, that's as you walk up the mine road and as you're walking around the site. I mean, that's pure raw asbestos. It is everywhere. We talk about legacy issues and malignant legacy issues. Like I said, the townspeople are so entrenched in this that when EPA came and they wanted to create a Superfund site and clean this up, they said no. The townspeople banded together and basically took a vote and said, no, we don't want you here. You're going to ruin our property values. Leave it alone. Leave us alone. If we want to fix it, we'll go up there with our bulldozers and we'll fix it. Which, yeah, of course, is not a good idea for anybody. It was definitely a heated meeting. I went to one of them, and no one believes that anyone's gotten sick. There's a guy that stood up and actually said, if I can find the quote, he said, more people have died in Ted Kennedy's car than have of asbestos. And the people cheered, and they're like, oh, it's so great. But that's the mentality of what we're dealing with. And I think it's true for any other town with a mine in it also. It's what funded the town. It's what made their homes. It's what made their families. It's how they earn their living. And it's a tough sell to come into these towns and tell them that, no, you're actually poisoning yourselves and everybody around you. And this is just, Google image. Marsh area is where that guy's property is, who originally filed the complaint in 2004. And you can see the pile sliding. I mean, this is about a mile downstream. 2015, it's pretty much all the way closed in. So, I mean, that's just between 2003 and 2015, how much it slid down. So, I mean, don't tell me that the piles aren't moving. Don't tell me that it's not a problem. Raw asbestos everywhere. Former governor of Vermont, Governor Shumlin, who Democrat, I don't understand why he had this sense. He should have been more, but he said, asbestos has been there a long time. The waste piles aren't posing a threat that require any action. It's better to let sleeping dogs lie. It's shocking when you hear something like that, especially, I know I'm preaching to the choir. Everybody here understands it, but, it really does. You follow the money, and that's unfortunately where we sit. So why Linda called me in a huff and upset, and rightly so. I am shocked. I didn't hear it. I had to hear it from Linda. I didn't know, and this is in my backyard, roughly. They're planning on moving this pile from Vermont 100 miles to Groveton, New Hampshire. Yeah. The plan is to truck this, certain times of the year. Sorry, I'm on my place. Basically, it's 100 miles. There is, like I said, it's 30 million tons of asbestos, and the idea is to move enough to get the piles somewhat leveled. I don't think the goal is to get all the asbestos gone. Someone did the math on it, and it would take 295 years to fully move it. But their plan is to move this to a plant that doesn't exist yet, but basically to process it to get magnesium oxide and hydroxides out for manufacturing. Now, the idea, yes, we have a problem with the piles themselves moving, but the idea that, and the EPA is on board with this, to move these piles. It is insane to think that you can drive 100 miles, 15 truckloads a day, and there won't be an accident, there won't be a spill, there won't be a problem, not to mention just digging up these piles. And I certainly don't have the answer, and I don't know. Maybe somebody in here does. But something needs to be done on the site, but certainly trucking all of this stuff to New Hampshire or trucking it anywhere off-site is a nightmare scenario to me, And Lynn and I are working together to try and come up with a plan, if anybody has any brilliant ideas, a strategic plan to try and stop this from happening. There's certainly something needs to be done at the mine, but hopefully we can come back next year and say this was stopped, and we all banded together and got it done. So definitely, look out for it, because if it can happen at this mine, there's other mines around the country, and they're going to be looking for things to do with that waste product, And so, if we can stop this here in Vermont, we can hopefully stop it other places. So, thank you.